Live with the community. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development bi-weekly call. Today is December 8th. We are well into December. So excited for all that's coming this rest of the year and in the new year for Microsoft. Let's talk about our agenda for today. We're going to go over the latest updates on the community. We're going to talk about PnP .NET libraries, PnP PowerShell. We're going to see updates on Yo Teams, the latest on Microsoft Teams Toolkit, latest on Microsoft Graph Toolkit, independent publisher connectors. We've got a cornucopia of things to talk about. Then we're going to see latest on script samples, Microsoft Teams samples, Power Platform samples, and then what time? Picture time. I don't have my audio box today, so I got to make my own sound effects. Then we're going to see our amazing presenters for the day. Giuliano is going to talk about how to create or migrate SharePoint pages with Microsoft Graph API and Power Automate. Love the better together story there. And then we are going to see Chris Kent for list formatting magic. So we look forward to that as well. Now, how can you participate in this community? There are demo solution or technical patterns that you are absolutely welcome to present on. You can contribute on GitHub, provide feedback. You can do that by requesting a spot at ak.ms/m365pnp/request/demo, just because we like more slashes. So definitely get involved. This is your community. We want you to feel empowered. Don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us or fill out that form. We look forward to everyone and anyone having a part in this community and on these community calls. There are a number of resources for you to take advantage of. Developer videos, community videos. We've got open source tools for you to utilize for SharePoint, PnP, Office Dev, Microsoft Graph. If you want to use samples, we've got a plethora of sample galleries for you. M365, Team samples, SPFX samples, Power Platform samples, extensions, list formatting. The list goes on and on and on. Use a list to keep track of them. Use list formatting to make it look pretty. We have so many samples for you to utilize, but you don't need to remember all of these URLs, only one, and that is ak.ms/m365/community. Now, we've also got a number of community calls for you to take advantage of, just like this one here. The first one is Microsoft 365 Platform. It's a weekly call, happens on Tuesdays, and it is only Microsoft presenters. So that means you're going to get the information directly from the mothership, which is fantastic because you're going to hear from program managers, product managers, and they're going to show you all of the cool new features that are available to you through your Microsoft technology. We've also got Microsoft Identity Platform, Microsoft Office add-ins, the Power Platform monthly call. We've got Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development, which is what you're on now, and the Sibling, Viva Connections, and SharePoint Framework. You can get access to all these calls at ak.ms/m365/calls. Sign up for all of them. You can download the current invites, as well as see them on demand on YouTube. All right, now, speaking of that Microsoft 365 platform call, the next one is the 13th of December. That's next Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific. And it's going to have three amazing presenters. Patrick Rogers is going to talk about using dynamic SVG images with Viva Aces for business charts. We didn't have enough acronyms, so we want to add more. We're going to hear from Srikanth and Yan Jin on Introduction to Microsoft 365 App Compliance Automation Tool. And then our favorite Seb Levert is going to cover Introduction to Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy. So definitely get that added. It is a great resource to be accessing all of the information directly from Microsoft. And yep, Seb, you are now presenting next week. Congratulations. This was your alarm. All right. We'll see you next week. So all these things are available to you. How in the world do you learn how to use them? Well, perhaps you want to do a demo. Perhaps you want to submit a GitHub request and sample. Sharing is Caring is a program here to provide you hands-on guidance. So what does that mean? It means that it's a safe space opportunity for you to join a hands-on session with a number of members of Microsoft, MVPs in the community. You'll be able to work right alongside other like-minded, passionate folks such as yourself in the community. And it's going to be, as I mentioned, safe space, which means we don't record it. So you're going to be able to ask any and all questions you want. We've got news days scheduled, first-time contributor, Power Platform, writing for the web, using PnP SPFX samples, and more. So don't hesitate to go sign up for all of those. It is completely free, and we enjoy working right alongside you. Now, once you have contributed to the community, we want to recognize all the amazing work that you're doing. You're doing amazing, amazing things in the community, and it's not just enough to say thank you and move on. We have started the Community Recognition Program, which is here to provide official and accredited recognition and celebration of the work you're doing. It's powered by Credly, the same Credly that does the certification badges, so you absolutely will get official ways to share that with your clients and your managers and let them know that you're making a difference in the community. You're more than welcome to put it on your blogs as well and share it in your profiles. Now, it's absolutely free. We've seen that a lot have been opting in. We do need you to opt in, though, aka.ms/m365/recognition. And of course, for the rest of this month, the season of getting. So if you do a contribution in the rest of this month, you will get a one-time only special season of getting badge. So we've seen those out in the wild. It's very, very exciting. Don't hesitate to sign up. Reach out if you have any questions. If you haven't seen it, sometimes or seen your badge, sometimes there are glitches in the matrix. So reach out and let us know. All right, let's move on to some project-specific updates. For that, we'll start with Bert.
Thank you, David. So PnP .NET, what happened? The core SDK side, two things. We had a quiet week. Last week was a conference, and less time was spent on building things. But nevertheless, Patrick Lambert built support for access request settings. So configured the web access request settings via core SDK is possible now. And Martin Leutzl, I probably pronounced it completely wrong, but Martin created a PR that allows us to use a certificate instance when we using our on behalf of authentication provider. So I need to still merge that one, but thanks for that one, Martin. On the framework side, I think the main thing to call out there is the work that Paul Bullock started, and that's a documentation side. Remember that Core SDK is like a really cool documentation side. Everything is documented, and it's used a lot. PnP framework documentation is, well, let's say non-existing. There is nothing. There's blogs from people out there, but there's nothing really structural. And Paul started a documentation site allowing contributors, like everyone in this call, to start documenting PnP framework specific things in there. So it's a matter of making an MD file and will end up in a nice documentation site. So I think we can surely slowly start to grow that documentation as well. And we're looking for volunteers to help out with that. So if you have things to document, if you have a blog post about PnP framework and that information is useful, please reach out and get that content in our documentation. And yeah, I think that's it. Gautam, go to PowerShell, please.
Yep. Thanks, Bert. So for those of you who are first time joining the call, PnP PowerShell is a very popular PowerShell module that you can use to connect to various Microsoft 365 services like SharePoint, Teams, Planner, Project, Compliance, and Azure AD, and lots more as well. So what's the latest in PnP PowerShell? Well, v1.12.0 is out, so do check that out. Besides that, we reached a nice little milestone of 4.1 million downloads. Besides that, we have a kind of a major announcement to make. So we have added support for .NET 6.0. So yeah, do go check that out. If you are using PowerShell 7.0.x or 7.1.x, just update to 7.2.x or 7.3 and it should work as it is. It's kind of a breaking change as well because it won't function in older PowerShell instances. So you need to be a bit more careful about using them. For now, it is right now in the nightly builds, so it won't impact your normal installations. But yeah, just be careful whenever the next major update is happening. Besides that, we improved the Viva dashboard connections related commandlets. So like get, set, as well as remove PnP Viva connections dashboard. So these commandlets basically get help you to add the Viva connection, Viva adaptive cards extensions to the Viva connections dashboard page, and those commandlets have been improved. What next? We would absolutely love to hear from you as well. Do check out the latest nightly builds and test out your scripts as well as your code that is running against the existing ones as well. And if you notice anything problematic or anything, would absolutely love to hear from you on the GitHub channel as well. So yep, that's pretty much from my end. Over to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Gautam. Let's move over to Yo Teams with Rick.
Hey. Yeah, for us as well, it was a conference week last week, but it was a good thing because we had to have some great discussions about how we're going to tackle the Yo Teams future, make it future-proof. One of them, of course, is our Visual Studio Code extension, which we're working on very hard. So if anybody feels like a Visual Studio Code extension pro, or even if you want to learn how to create one, then we're really happy if you want to help us out. We're still updating the docs, and we of course have some videos in mind that we want to do some small video tutorials on how to get started with Yo Teams. More of, we're already ready to deploy a new version, but that will be in the next slide in the next 2 weeks. So let's see how that goes. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Let's move over to Microsoft Teams Toolkit with John.
Thank you. So this is basically the same as last week. We didn't have a ton of updates to share, but I kept this here in case you missed it last week. Right now the team is focused on kind of this what's next block, where we are releasing some features, and they're available as an alpha build on GitHub right now. So basically we're changing the app model and the way the toolkit works and exposing pretty much everything that it does as some type of configuration file. And right now that implementation is very much like GitHub Actions. It looks similar to that. So basically you get a YAML file and it defines every step that the toolkit does, like provision or create app or create a bot. And then we have a bunch of predefined actions for doing those things, and you can customize them. So if you need them, you can use them. And if you don't, or you want to swap it out for something like, I don't know, if you want to provision with a PowerShell script instead of using our CLI tool or something like that, or integrate with some other process that you already have, or scaffold with some other tool, and then still use the toolkit. We're trying to make all those types of scenarios possible. So you can pretty much use whatever you want and use maybe the best parts of the toolkit or the parts that work best for you. So happy to get feedback on that. If you're interested in that, reach out to us or the team, or go to GitHub and download the alpha build on the releases tab and try it out and let us know.
Excellent. Very cool. Thank you, John. All right. Now, next up, Microsoft Graph Toolkit with our lovely Seb, Levert.
Hey, David. Thank you, everybody. We are excited. We shipped our version 2.8 last week. We've got a ton of community contribution. So I wanted to thank everybody, Nathan, Ashlyn, SL Dragon, and Devadev Test, where we have had lots of interactions with these users, and not surprisingly, but positively, they came back to us and they submitted PR. So we're very excited about having folks contributing to the toolkit. We have the MGT samples repo. We are currently bringing new solutions over there. So not just simple samples, but fully baked in solutions. So you can expect big changes over there in the next week, I would say. What's next? We are getting closer and closer and closer to our V3 release. We're actually currently doing some final touches on this. So feel free to try it out. You just npm install on our @next.fluentui, and you're going to be able to see all the greatest and latest that we have been working on. It's really cool. I'm using that on a daily basis, and it's really, really, really cool what we have been doing there. You still need your help, though. If you want to help us identify bugs, log bugs in our repo, or if you want to take on some contributions, opportunities, and send us some PR, please feel free to do so. We're more than happy to welcome you, making it a safe space for you to do your best work. So back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Seb. Very excited on the upcoming V3. Very, very cool. All right. How about some independent publisher connector news with Joss?
Hi, everyone. Happy holidays. Thank you for being here. While other teams may have had slow weeks for the holidays, we simply do not slow down in the world of connectors. We have added 10 more since we last spoke 2 weeks ago. We are now at a total of 212 independent publisher connectors. In proportion, the entire ecosystem across Power Automate, Power Apps, and Azure Logic Apps is now at 894, which is 16 more than our last session 2 weeks ago. I'd also like to add that this is the second highest growth quarter in the history of connectors since 2016. By the next time we speak, we very well may cross the 900 threshold, and we are pushing towards 1,000. I'd like to say thank you to Troy Taylor, Julia, Artesian Software, Ashwani, Sean, and actually a little insider scoop. We're going to announce this at Airlift later on, but we finally have a Snowflake connector created by the community. So thank you all for that. Aside from that, I would just like to remind everybody that the Flow of the Week blog post is coming back. This originally started in 2019 with the goal of highlighting how to build specific use case flows. But Power Automate was very different back then, a much younger product, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to highlight the community now. So please visit aka.ms/flow of the week form if you have a great flow use case scenario that you would like to share with me. I'd also like to remind everybody that due to the World Cup and holidays, we may still face some deployment freezes. So I'm sorry if there's any delays, but our team and you guys are clearly not slowing down. So we'll look for any way to keep pushing forward. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, if I could help start your connector building experience at all. Links will be in the chat. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. How appropriate is it that Snowflake dropped in December, right?
I know. I know. This has been going on for months. I'm so happy to announce this today. It's such a huge deal for us internally.
Awesome. Very exciting. Okay, let's talk about script samples. Paul is not able to be here today, but we have some new scenarios using PnP PowerShell, remove modern web parts from web pages by Raman, create a multi-hub set of communication sites by Paul. We've got updated scenarios on activating a site feature in SharePoint used online by Dan. Lots of ways to contribute. This is really one of the easier ways. We all have script samples that are utility samples that we've used for CLI for Microsoft 365 or PowerShell or Microsoft Graph. Don't hesitate to contribute to these. You get a special badge. It's the season of getting. You're going to get the extra special badge. We invite anyone and everyone to invite. So definitely don't be shy. Don't hesitate to do that. You can learn more at aka.ms/script samples. And for Microsoft Teams samples, well, we're going to highlight our team sample app of the week. Now, this is a meeting tab that records names so everyone can pronounce them properly by Marcus. So it's really, really cool. It's a meeting app that allows you to not feel weird about having to say, hey, how do you pronounce your name? I got to do that all the time, so I don't butcher it. Thanks to Marcus, we're always looking for more samples, so please submit your favorite sample. Whether it's bare bone or a fully fledged application, all are welcome. Don't hesitate. You can learn more at aka.ms/team samples. And of course, we got Power Platform samples. Don't hesitate to check these out. We had more come in this week. We're processing them. We'll have those all highlighted in the next call. So thank you for all those contributors. And we've got a Power Platform contributor sharing is caring session coming up on January 10th. So don't hesitate to sign up. We gave you the month of December off so that you could enjoy that time with family and those vacations. So many samples. Thank you. What time is it? It's that time.
Excellent. Let me put everybody again on the screen. We are not yet recording. Wait. Let's wait a few more seconds. A lot of familiar faces in the back row, second last row. Rick, behave. Or somebody's sideways. That's really wild. There we go. 50 seats in a room, and I will put the recording on. Not yet. 3, 2, 1. I think we are hitting the max attendees. Awesome to see all of the people once again on the call. And yes, and excitement is real. And Seb is on the back row showing how it can be done. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Awesome to see this many faces again on the call. Awesome to see you here. Thank you for joining, and thank you for keeping the feedback coming. Really, really cool. Excellent. Let's get back on the slides.
Awesome. Thank you, Vesa. All right. So time for demo time. We're going to invite Giuliano to take over here on how to create or migrate SharePoint pages with Microsoft Graph API and Power Automate. Loving this. Looking forward to it. Giuliano, take it over.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, David. I'm going to share my screen. I hope that you can see my screen right now. You can hear me well.
Yep, so, I can see it and hear it. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for this spot. I'm glad to share this demo with you all. So just a short presentation about me. Since 5 years, I am an MVP. For the last year, I got my second award for second category, which is the M365 apps and services. You can find here the link to my YouTube channel, where you can find more than 300 videos, and it's aimed to developers, IT pro, and end users. I hope that you can find useful content there. So now let's jump on the next slide. So just a summary of the new capability in Microsoft Graph API that target SharePoint pages. This is great because it opens the usage to other many scenarios. It's in beta right now, so Microsoft, of course, is still working on it, and there are changes. I already faced a change, so then I will show you later. And so basically, with this new capability, we can finally migrate content in SharePoint, more specifically pages, across sites and across tenants. Now, recently, Microsoft has added more endpoints, where you can collect horizontal section, vertical section of the page, web parts, and there is one which is great that allows you to expand the full canvas of the page. It means that you can grab the entire content of the page and then create a new page with the same content in another place. Now let's jump on the demo directly. So I'm going now to open my Visual Studio Code. I'm used to work with Visual Studio Code when I deal with Microsoft Graph API. Here I have several endpoints that I'm consuming. In this specific first endpoint, we can see that I'm grabbing one page on the home page on the home side of my SharePoint tenant. I am, as I mentioned, on the beta endpoint. I already grabbed a valid token that I can use to consume this endpoint. And here I have the response of my request. I can see the result of the page. I made a video, I guess 2 weeks ago, about this functionality, and now I can see the payload, that the JSON payload, that it's a little bit different. There are more information, which is great. So you can deal with all this meta information about the page. What is missing here is one specific attribute, which is the content of the page. And this is contained in the canvas layout. It's called property. There you can find an array with all sections and web parts. So you can grab this thing by adding in your query of the endpoint. You can add expand web parts to collect all web parts contained in the page. And then I guess, I'm not 100% sure, but I think in the future we could make also a use of the canvas layout in the expanding property to get the sections and web parts in one shot. Now let me jump on this other browser instance where I have my Power Automate flow built already. Let me edit this, and here let me highlight some specific step of this flow. So this flow is triggered manually, and it grabs a token that allows me to consume the Graph API endpoints. Then here in this step, I'm going to get a specific page on the site, and then here after the parse JSON, I have another step to compose my JSON payload that I will use later. Now I tested this before, and the payload probably it's not corrected, so I cannot get now the dynamic value of the content. I have, more specifically, I have an error on the get request when I try to expand the canvas layout or the web parts. It does not work. I have an error message that tells me that the web parts or the canvas layout is not a complex object, or it's not an object that I can navigate. But anyway, so I added a static JSON payload to the next request, to the next post. I'm going here to basically to post a new page in my global HR communication site. And then what I added here as a content is this JSON payload. So let me show you in practice what I'm talking about. It is basically this page that I have on my home site. It's a normal SharePoint page with a text. It's a very simple scenario, but you can deal with complex content on the page with more sections, columns, rows, and more web parts. But as I mentioned, by expanding the content of the page using the Graph API endpoint, you are able to collect the full canvas of the page. Now let's migrate this page on the global HR communication side. So let me run now this flow. Let me hit the test and the run flow done. And let's see the result. and now it's the flow. It's completed. This means that I can jump on my site pages here, and I can immediately see the page that is showing up, the new page a few seconds ago. I'm using an application permission approach to consume the Graph API. This means that you will see this application permission showing up when the page is migrated. The really important, when you create the page, it's important that then you grab the ID of the page already created, and then you make and you consume another post request to publish the page. Otherwise, especially if you use this approach, this page will be not visible to anybody. Now, if I open this test ASPX, I changed the header of this page. And then what I have here basically is the same content of the page that we have seen before with links and the HTML. Basically, I can jump back on the same page. It is exactly the same content. So this is how it works, and it's, as I mentioned, it's great to have now this new capability along the Microsoft Graph API. And yeah, I'm now really curious to see the great next demo coming for a new episode of the Warrior Horses. Thank you again, and David, back to you.
Awesome, Giuliano. Really, really appreciate it. I love the overlapping circle here of how you're using Graph and using Power Automate, using M365 technologies along with Power Platform. Really a nice showcase of better together. So thank you so much. Excellent work. All right, as you mentioned, galloping in, mentioned my own sound effects. Chris Kent, list formatting magic. Take it away.
All right, you hear me, yo?
Yo, hear you.
Yo. I don't want to use that term all the time, but why not, you know? All right, so, yeah, I'm Chris, everybody. All right, let's dive in. We're going to take a look at a couple of things. You know, that is the point of a demo. Perfect. Okay, so we head over to our Classic Warrior Horses site, as we do. Right, and we're going to take a look at a list the Warrior Horses have used a number of times. We're going to take a little more in-depth look at a couple of options to make things easier. Right, so one of the lists that the horses use, right, is a hit list. Right, so these are targets to be eliminated, murdered, destroyed, killed, whatever you want to say. Right, so we've got this, and we've taken a look at this. We've actually formatted this a couple of times. Already got a format here. This is an out-of-the-box format where we've updated the icons and a couple things like that. Right. What I want to talk to you about is making things easier to edit. So we have looked at inlineEditField and we've looked at setValue before, but we haven't really looked at them in a whole lot of depth. So guess what we're going to do? That's right, we're going to do it. So one of the things I like is like on a status column, you know, you can always switch over to quick edit, or you can open up this item, right? I'm trying to change the status, and then I click on it and I can edit it, and that's fine, right? There's a lot of steps. And sometimes you want that exact type of thing, right? If you're working with a whole form and you want them to edit everything, and that's exactly where you want them to edit it, right? In line with all your extra stuff, but sometimes especially a status field, right? It'd be really nice just to click and change that. So let me show you the quick and easy way to make any formatted column easily editable, right? So I literally don't care what's in the format right now. All right, so this is one generated by the design mode, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. Let's make it slightly bigger. Right, and right before that last little squiggly, I'm just going to add a comma, and I'm going to say inline. It'll start to, I just type an in. It'll be like, here you go. Hit tab, and instead of field name, I'm just going to write at current field. So let's make sure I'm actually in the box. Remove field name. I'm going to say at current field, and because that will apply to whatever the current column is, when I save that, eliminate that now, I've just made this inline editable, right? So that's pretty cool. So I could change, you know, Ted the Horse Assassin is now deceased. Very sad, right? But that's the idea here. So again, I didn't care what was in the format. I could apply whatever I wanted with my design mode, right? I've got data bars, whatever it is, and then I just add that one-liner, and it's suddenly editable. Now I can make that even easier on things like if I don't have a format, right? So this is just a date. There's no format. I can't just come in here and say format this column, right? Oh, wait, Chris said just add the one line. It's not there, right? Well, good news is I've got a pretty quick format for you that you can type in. I'm just going to paste it in for fun. So we can take a look at it. So all I'm doing here is I've basically made a format, and I'm using this display value. So let's bring this over so we can see it. Whip, whip, whip. There we go. Let's preview that. So by using the display value, I ensure that whatever I've set up, right? So this works for like number fields to get that, whatever your percentages, your commas and everything all set up. Works on dates to get this the way you wanted it, right? Because otherwise you sometimes get something a little ugly. Let's see, I think in this case, we're going to get the same value because I haven't configured this differently. But generally, you're going to be a lot safer if you have this display value. And it's not going to be a problem if there isn't a specific display value. So when we do that, now when we edit it, SharePoint's smart enough to know, oh, this should be a calendar, right? So it's pretty cool. It's automatically going to pick all that stuff up. So this inline edit field is just drop dead simple way to do this kind of stuff. One thing to note is it doesn't have to be right here on what you're doing here. It also doesn't have to be this particular field. Right, so one of the things I could do is I could put, instead of inline edit field as the current field, right, I could put a different field. So let's say status here. All right, if we preview that, now when we click on it, right, it can actually set a completely different field on here. So this is where you can get into some kind of cool stuff where, and you can have more than one inline edit field, right? You get one per element, right? But if you've got children inside this div, so say you've got a series of icons here, right, you can set up various editing types things and really kind of control that experience. That's pretty cool, but it's okay, right? All we're really doing is saying bring out whatever the inline editor is, right? Whether that's, a calendar or it's the choice looked up or it's a people field, all that kind of stuff. For now, I'm going to get rid of that. But what if you want to be a little more specific, right? So this is where we start to look at things like setValue. So setValue is a different way to do this. And I should also note here that when we're doing this, when you're looking for help on this stuff, right? So if we go over to our sample repo, so this is the GitHub site. If you go to aka.ms/list formatting, you'll end up here on this site. And if you're looking for help with setting up these edit values, right? Because this could be a little bit tricky. This is a little more of an advanced area. If you go into groupings, we've got a couple of different ways you can look at that, right? So one, you can go by category, and we've got a category for inline editing here. So there's 48 different samples that do some kind of editing from the view of your list, right? So that's cool. If you want to be a little more specific, right, because this is everything kind of all dumped together, you can come down here and go by feature. And so feature we've got basically on keywords, so inline edit field. So if you want to see specifically the samples that are using the inline edit field, that's how you're going to find those. But you can also go by action. So for the stuff I'm about to show you, set value here, we've got lots of samples that are also showing how to do set value. So set value is a little more specific. And let's take a look at what that means. So when I say set value, we come over here. Let's add a column here. So let's just add a person column. Hit next. And we're going to call this the squad. This is our hit squad. Ooh, not squad. Squad. All right, we're going to say, yeah, show the profile photos. That sounds great. We're going to allow multiple selections. Perfect. All right, so we're going to save that. Now we've got this go away thing. I promise there's a column. There it is. Okay. And again, we can edit this thing. All right, so let's add just on this one, let's add to the squad. All right, so the squad here will be me. I want to be part of this murdering. Right, and we'll add another guy here. That's great for now. Okay. So click off to make sure it gets saved, and we close it. And that's kind of the out of the box, and that's great. And if we try to apply that inline edit field, we're going to have a couple of issues there, right? So if we apply the inline edit field, just like I showed you before, column settings, we format this column, scroll that over, and I'll grab that one from before with that display value. That display value is really only good for some of your basic column types, right? So things that have kind of multi-properties like lookup columns or person fields, or, there are multi-lookup in general, this isn't going to work great. So when you preview that, object, wow, that looks terrible, right? So if we wanted to, we could instead change this into, say, instead of current field.display value, say equals, and we could join them together, right? So at the current field, we say we want their title because that's their name, right? We're going to just join those with a comma and a space with a single quote, and then there we go, and then let's put a parenthesis on there. All right, we can do something like this, and then it's a little better. Right now, it's actually an editable field, and that's cool, right? But you'll notice one other thing that happens, right? We get this. it's okay, right? But we lost some of that stuff we had, right? Where we had their display, photo and so on. It's not even correctly showing it here in the edit view. That's okay, right? So now we need to get a little more creative when we have something like this. The other thing we lost is that person card, right? So we had that hover field before. Let me remind you what that was. Let's delete that. Save that, right? So we had this. So if we want to keep all of that intact, then we have to go a little more specific in how we want to do this. The other thing we want to consider is sometimes we don't want to just add editing capabilities across the board, right? If you want to add editing capabilities across the board, keep your formats, well, then switch it to grid view. And then over here, you'll notice, some people notice an option, you can actually save the view as when you got a little star like that. Now, if I save it again, my default view is now grid view, right? So when people come back here, they're always in the grid view. And if you're really looking just for a quick edit list, forget all this format stuff, just do that, okay? That's not what we're looking for here. So let me save it again, get rid of that. And let's take a look a little more depth of how we might do set value on here. So set value, if we want to look at an example here on this one, we'll come back to the person field. We have this sample, and this is a sample that's available again on our sample repo. All right, and the idea here is that you can edit this field using these arrows. Right, so when I edit the arrow, it actually changes that threat level. This is a percentage field behind the scenes. And what the idea is, with the set value, say action, set value, right, in a custom row action, and then you're going to give it action input. Now, an action input is going to be the field name. It's the internal field name, but now you don't need the square bracket and the $sign. Right, you just put that there. You could actually put multiple fields you want to update at the same time. Right, so maybe when you click a button, you're also wanting to, set the person that it's assigned to. You also want to set a due date, out 1 week. And you want to set a status to, assigned, something like that. You could do all of that with a single button here by just having each field listed inside this action input. All right, so in this case, we're just setting the threat level. All right, so this is the left arrow. And what we're saying is we're looking at the value and we're putting an expression. So this can either be an expression, it can be another column reference, it could just be a value, right? So if I just wanted to put a 5 there, I could. One thing to note, it's a little weird, is that on percentage fields, the value that you get back is a decimal, right? So it's going to be a value between 0 and 1, but the value you set it with should be a value between 0 and 100. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense. That's just something to note, which is why I'm showing this example right here. So you'll notice that I'm comparing it as if it's a decimal, but I'm setting it as an integer, as a whole number. So there you go. That's just something to keep in mind. But the idea here is super powerful, right? You can start to set the value of all sorts of different things. So let's take a look at an example, right? So I love to provide guidance. I think one of the number one things you can do with formatting is to provide guidance and direction to your end user, right? Make it easier with what you want them to do. So in this case, I don't necessarily want them coming in and editing everything here, but maybe I want them to volunteer, right? Or remove themselves from a list of people. So wouldn't it be nice if I had an easy button to just say, yeah, add me here, remove me here, that kind of thing, right? So I've got this list. I don't need to edit the whole thing. It's a quick boom, boom, boom. These are the ones I want. So in order to do that, let's take a look at a format we can apply here. Because I've got a little more time, we're going to start over here. And instead of action, let's go down here and let's go like by column type. And let's say person. All right, so let's actually go multi-person because that's what we've got. And the one I like to use a lot is the face pile. So the face pile is this guy right here. What it does is it shows all the profile pictures, but it also keeps that person card and everything. So I'm just going to copy this, head over back here, column settings, format this column, and let's paste that sucker. Let's preview it. There we go. So it starts to do this. Now, one of the things this does is it's designed to only show up to 3 people, right, at a time, and that's not quite what I want here. So we're going to edit this just a little bit here. So we're going to pull out a few things to make this kind of do what we want. And I'm doing it this way because this is how I make a lot of my samples. I start with somebody else's sample, or in this case mine, right? But then I tweak it, right? I sometimes start from scratch, but a lot of times this is is the easiest way, right? Go grab a sample, figure out what they're doing in it, and then mess around with it, break it a little bit. So in this case, I can remove all the logic that says, hey, look at the number of things that are happening and kill them, right? So I'm going to do that really quickly. Just going to go in here and display here. We don't need that. So this is the actual photo. We don't need any special display logic on that anymore. And then this is actually the last one, which is the one that shows if we don't have anything, so we don't need that either. So we can remove that. Let's preview that. See if I messed it up. There we go. All right, so all I really did, and it's a little weird because we only got 2. Let's save that and add a couple more on another one here just so we can see what we're looking at. Let's add to the squad. Let's add myself. Let's add that Nate. And let's add Dan. Sounds good. There we go. And let's add Vigo Horsenberg, just so we've got a couple more, and we'll add Tiny Horse Jr. Perfect. Okay. That will also help me illustrate a problem in just a moment. Perfect. Okay, so now we've got some weirdness right now. We're showing them all, but it looks a little strange, right? It's starting to shrink them down, right? So what's really happening there is we are drawing for each one of these. We're using the for each on this to draw a little person field, but they're all kind of getting squashed down. So what we can do is on that parent element, we could say a style, and let's just add some wrapping, right? So we're going to say display is flex, and we're going to say flex wrap is wrap. Boom, there we go. So now we're wrapping those, right? So now we're not cutting them off. But we've got ourselves a display. That's cool. And we hover over them. All right, we should get let's save it and make sure we're actually, just refresh. Make sure we've got that person field still working the way we want. We don't, which is sad. I eliminated that somehow. All right, we'll come back with that. But the idea here is we're editing this. We're getting this just going a little bit here. And let's see, where's my default hover field? I think that's what I've eliminated. I have eliminated my default hover field should be the person iterator. Anybody see that? I think I eliminated the wrong one. That's all right. Let's just grab it from over here and we'll add it right back in. So the idea is if I want to show that, right, then inside my image here, I would add that here instead of the attributes right under here. I would say default hover field is going to be my person iterator. And if I preview that now, let's see if we got that back. There we go. Now we've got that back, right? So now if I hover over them, we should get, yep, there's the person editor. So the idea here is cool. So now we've got something going, but now we want to add in that add or remove kind of functionality, right, to volunteer or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an extra little button over here. So we're just going to come down here and we're going to kind of copy some of this stuff from before. And let's just write our own div here, just like what we did for the above div. Because we want it to be almost the same, but instead of an image, we're going to switch it up a little bit. So we're just going to paste that in. We're going to scroll up here. We don't need a for each anymore. Bye-bye. All right, so we'll get rid of that. And then we're going to say, why don't we come down here and we'll go to our children instead of an image type, right? We don't need that anymore. Let's just bye-bye. All right, and we're just going to put instead, let's put an Elm type of, say, div. All right, in this case, we're going to say some attributes, and we'll say the icon name. All right, this is where we specify an icon, and we'll head over to, that thing. How can I? Whoop, whoop, whoop. Ignore my teams underneath. There we go. We'll switch it that way. All right, we'll go back to Flycon. Right, so Flycon has all these icons here, so it's flycon.io. If I go to the user, there's a bunch of options here, so in this case, we'll take the, this one looks good, add friend. I'm going to copy that. Go back over here. That's the icon I want to show. It's going to be add friend. All right, we can preview that to kind of see how it's going. Oh, looking lovely, right? But we're starting to get an icon that's showing up. We need to specify the sizing and some other things here, but we can do that. So maybe we do that on the parent, right? So we've got this div that's showing up here. So let's add some attributes here. Let's add like some class. So class. Yeah. All right, so class, and here we're going to just add some classes. So we're going to say MS BG color, all right? We're going to say neutral lighter. If we do that, then we get this, ooh, pretty. All right, so now if we do that, we go MS BG color. This is going to be the one we're going to add. So I'm going to say green. All right, but I'm going to say dash dash hover. And when I do that, now it's only green on hover. Ooh, now we're getting somewhere, right? So now we've got that on hover. Now let's check that text, right? So we're going to say the MS font color, is neutral secondary, and we'll say the MS font color dash white dash dash hover, so that we can get it, when it hovers. Let's preview that. So now we see our icon actually turns white when we hover it. And let's change that sizing a bit as well, because that's not so great. Oh, MS font size dash L. Let's try large. Oh, that's better. Okay, and by the way, where I'm getting these classes, where I'm just pulling these out of nowhere, I'm not. We're actually listing those again back here. So we've got these grouped. So if you wanted to see like those MSBG colors I just typed, right? Here they all are. So you can see there's a bunch of those, but there's also, the theme-based ones. So you can see some of the neutrals down here. This is where I'm getting all these, and you can see all the different samples that are using those as well. So if you're interested in these classes, this is where you find them. All right, now back to them. All right, so that's cool. Now it's looking a little better. Let's, position it the way we want, right? So the best way to do that is, once again, with Flexbox. So we're going to say display, and we're going to say flex, and we're going to we're going to justify that content, because that sounds fun. We're going to space it evenly. This stuff isn't really formatting specific. This is more just understanding Flexbox, which is a bit of a beast in itself. But there are a bunch of websites, if you just type in Flexbox, that help you understand what all these different properties mean. But basically what I did there was I said, put it in the middle. So that's what I did. Those are the magic words for put it in the middle. So now we've got an icon that's in the middle. It shows up green. It doesn't actually do anything, but we'd like it to, right? So now we've got this kind of plus button, which helps guide that user. So what we do, we're going to add that set value. So we're going to do that up here on the main div rather than that icon down below, just so we've got the full circle to click anywhere. I'm going to say custom row action. There we go. I'm hitting tab to have it auto suggest for me. And this one I'm going to put set value with a lowercase s and an uppercase V. And so then we need those action inputs, right? So action input, you can see it automatically tells me the field name and the value to set. So in this case, right, I'm just going to put the value I want to set it on the squad, right? And the value to set in this case, right? So this is a multi-person field. So how do I deal with that, right? Because I don't want to just set, I want to add to it. So the way you do that is you're actually going to set an array in here. So an array is just a collection of objects, right? So, but I need it to have my object in it that I want or not want. In this case, I want to add myself, right? So I want to say, add me in there. So the way you can do that is we have these helpful little expressions. So I type equal to say it's an expression. I can say append to. So append to takes an array, and then it takes whatever value. So the array in this case, I could say at current field, right? But I'm just going to, for clarity, I'm going to say squad. Okay. But I need the array, and the array in this case is not just squad. It's actually the array of the email's address. So squad.email. And then I'm going to say the person I want to add is me, which I've got this nice placeholder for my email address, which is at me. And just close that parenthesis. And the idea is I'm saying set the squad value to whatever it is already, but also with me inside of it. Okay. So if we preview that or save it, here we go. Now I should be able to hit this. Boom, I just got added. That's pretty cool, right? This doesn't make a whole lot of sense though. I'm already in it. So what just happened, right? So now we need to change this around just a little bit. So let's come up here and do the opposite. So that's pretty cool. So let's add another button to remove. All right, so let's just grab all of that. And sometimes the easiest way to do that is collapse it, and then you know you got the whole object. Copy it, then put a comma and paste that sucker. Okay, so now we need a different icon. So let's go back to Flycon over here. And what's one there? That's leave user. Let's do, I think it's called follow. There it is. Follow user. Perfect. Because it's got a little arrow on it. We're saying, get out of there. All right. Oh, I made some beepings on my side. All right, follow user. Preview that. So now we've got a different button. All right. Oh, we don't want it to be green though. So we come up here and we say instead of green, right, let's put red. So we preview that. Now we get red. That looks good. All right. And maybe we want to put, make this a little more obvious what we're doing. Let's put a title, right? So we can get a tooltip. And we're going to say leave. All right, and up here, let's put another one in this guy as well, because we didn't put one, and that would be nice of us to do that. So right after class, we're going to say title is volunteer. I'm volunteering to murder them. Perfect. Okay, so preview that. Now we get a nice little leave and volunteer, so that helps. All right, but one of the weird things is, well, first we got to make the remove. We have to have this work. So there's actually the opposite of append to, which is remove from. All right, so we can do that, and if we save that, so now if I hit this button, right, I should be removed. Perfect. So I can add myself, and I can remove myself. And that's okay, but I got 2 buttons, so let's make those conditional because I don't want 2 buttons, right? We want to guide users, not confuse them by having buttons that don't work. So one of the ways we can do that is if we come up to where we have display as flex, well, let's make that conditional. All right, so we say equals, and we're going to say if index of, so index of can work on a string like text, or it can also work on an array. So we could say at current field dot email, so that array, if me, all right, so the index of my email address in that list of email addresses in the field is greater than -1, all right, so -1 means it's not found, but if it is in there, all right, so what was this, our remove, or was it, yeah, this is our leave. So if it's in there, then we want to show it. So flex, and if it's not in there, we don't want to show it, right? So let's close that, let's preview that. All right, perfect. So now let's take that, and we're just going to reverse it on the other button. All right, so we've got both buttons here. We could have made everything else really conditional, but it gets really hard to do that. I just like to make basically elements that are configured and then make them conditionally show. I find that a lot easier to work with than trying to go and you know, be real clever on putting a formula in here to change it to green or red based on what it is. Like, blah. I don't want to do that. I just do it all on the element itself, right? So let's do that here. Boom. And the only thing we need to do now is just reverse what we did. So now we're going to say none on this one, on the true, and we're going to say flex on the false. There we go. Preview that. Oh, what have I done? Oh, I said false. You can't talk and type. Preview that. There we go. So now I've got my button, right? So this is leave because I'm in there, and this is add because I'm not in there. So that's pretty cool. So let's save that. Now we've got that, and that's awesome. So I can come in here and I can say, no thanks, I don't want to help with that one. Or I could say, yes, I do want to help with that one. Sign me up, right? And you'll see that it's just updating the list item behind the scenes, and that's awesome. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention is there is an issue here. So we are working with email addresses exclusively on the people fields. So you can update them with the username, but in this case, we're just using the email address because that's the placeholder we have with the @me. But one thing to note is if you've got users like I do that don't have email addresses, like say Vigo Horsenberg here, right, they don't get my people fields to show up for some reason. They don't have email addresses. So what happens? When I try and work with these email addresses, it dies, it fails, so sad, right? Sorry, Madonna, I can't join your squad to murder you. And that's so sad, right? So was it really Madonna? It was Madonna. That's funny. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. If you have users, which I think is pretty rare, but if you have users without email addresses, this is going to be a problem, and you're not going to be able to do this kind of fancy formatting, right? So in that case, you're going to have to switch to one of the less fancier format options, right? Or, you know, you can always just let them edit it right here on this thing, right? So because you can still click and edit those. Okay, so that's just one thing to note, and that's there you go. Let's take a look at the slides and kind of wrap this sucker up. Boom. So inlineEditField. So you can use that current field in the column formats, right? So that inlineEditField at current field is the quick win to any existing format to make it quickly editable, especially helpful on those choice columns because choice columns come with formats out of the box by default, right? So get them configured with the colors and the icons and borders and whatever else you want, and then slap that on there, and you've got a fancy field, right? And then, of course, you can use this quick format for most other types outside of the complex field types like people and so on. And then finally, setValue. That is important to note. Again, unlike everywhere else where we reference internal field names, you don't need the square bracket and the $. And then you can do all sorts of really cool stuff. There is one that I didn't show you, which is the replace. So replace will actually remove it from the array and then add your item in between. I haven't really found a lot of use cases where I'm wanting to do that, but it may come up, especially if you're using a choice column in a weird way. You know, we're say if you're using a choice column, it actually means a couple of different things. You could use it for that and so on. But overall, you're mostly going to be using these append to and remove from for multi-choice or multi-person columns. For just single person columns, you're just going to use the email address or not, and so on. All right. So if you're looking to find more details about all this stuff, again, I showed you where you can look at those groupings, and that's where you can find all sorts of samples. There's some really cool samples out there doing some neat stuff. The editing stuff really takes your sample or your format to a whole new level. So check it out, and that's all I got. Boom.
Awesome, Chris. Well, I tell you, I love how diverse and inclusive your samples are. I mean, they're for everyone. Excellent. All right. Thank you to Giuliano and Chris for the amazing demos today. And we appreciate everyone who wants to demo, so don't hesitate to sign up as well. The recording will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 Community YouTube channel. You can subscribe today and get that information directly into your inbox as soon as it's available. You can do that at aka.ms/m365/videos. You will not be able to download the video. If Teams says that it's ready and it's ready to download, you'll not be able to. It can only be downloaded by those in Microsoft. So the best way is to go subscribe, aka.ms/m365/videos. You can also follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev or at M365PNP, and you'll be alerted when those videos are available. The next M365 General Dev call is December 22nd, 7 a.m., and the next Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework call next week, December 15th at 7 a.m. as well. See all of our community calls at aka.ms/m365/calls. Thank you, everyone, for your excellent participation today and wonderful conversation. You are the best part of this community. We love all of your presentations, all of your suggestions, all of your contributions. Don't stop. Keep them coming. Appreciate everything you're doing. Have a great rest of your week and a wonderful weekend. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey!